Hello guys, welcome back. This is the final part of my Dom Tropen build. At this stage, everything's been prepped up and now we're moving into the pre-shading. As you can see, I already did the pre-shading and we're getting ready for the base colors. We're just gonna take it easy and go through the remaining steps. Panel lining, weathering, and a few touch-ups. Bring all the details together. This is where it finally starts to look like a finished kit. Let's get right into it. Okay, now with the pre-shading. The main reason we do this is to add a bit more depth and variation to the surface. Instead of everything looking flat after the base coat, the darker tones underneath help bring out the details, especially around the panel lines, edges, and recessed areas. Normally, how I do this is I spray along the panel lines and areas where shadows would normally fall, like the crevices and little nooks and crannies. Nothing too heavy, since I still want the effect to show through the base color, but again, not too aggressively. It might look a bit too dark or messy at this stage, but once the main colors go on, it tones everything down and blends nicely. Here's everything assembled, and it honestly looks like a manga sketch at this point. I don't know. And here are the paints I'm gonna use. Field blue for most of the armor, about 80%. Then a lighter blue for the remaining areas. We'll be using white paint to lighten things up a bit, since these colors are pretty dark, so we can help bring out the pre-shading underneath and add a bit more contrast. And red for the chest part, or the cockpit, and the main visor. No, I think that's not a visor. I think that's a faceplate. I don't know. Whatever. Engine gray. Neutral gray for the inner frame, hands, and the rocket launcher. The label is faded, but it's light ghost gray or light gray for the rifle. Hey, future levy here. I forgot to include, but I also use a black base and a silver paint for the thruster bells. These paints are from Tinta Hobby Paints. Alright, back to the video. These are mostly Tamiya acrylics and some lacquers, since these are what I already have for the colors I want. I didn't really want to wait a few more days for new paints to arrive, so we're just working with what's on hand. But personally, I do prefer lacquer based paints because they go on smoother and dry a lot faster. Alright, let's get right onto the painted parts. Alright, here it is. Everything's been painted with the base colors. The shading turned out just right for me, for my taste. Subtle, not right in your face shading, just right. I'm quite happy with the results. Paint's fully cured, so now we can carefully start reassembling and I can now glue the parts for a more solid fit. So here's the assemble kit. It might look okay, but there's still a long way to go and lots of details are missing. First, let's go ahead and paint the missing details. You've got two options: mask the parts and airbrush, or just hand paint to save time and masking tape. I'm choosing the second option. Here are the paints I'm going to use. From my experience, these brands are ideal for hand painting and give nice coverage. And the brushes. I'm using any synthetic ones with a nice tip. I only need cheap brushes since I'm constantly replacing them anyway. If you know these water-based acrylics, you know that they dry fast. That's why a wet palette is needed. It keeps the paint fresh, wet, hence the name, and super easy to work with when hand painting. I'm painting this small detail gray to match the inner frame. I'm painting it in thin passes and build it up with a couple more layers. Now onto the headpiece. I'm mixing gray with black to make it darker, to make sure the camera lens or the eye really stand out. For the red details, I'm starting with a white base coat, then layering it with the red on top. This makes the color red more vibrant and easy to cover. Now let's bring out the panel details. We're using thinned down enamel paints, also known as panel line accent paints. For this, we'll use dark gray for the light gray armor, and black for the field blue armor. We also need a long pointy brush. The Tamiya panel line accent paints actually come with a brush inside, which works fine. As you can see, I applied the panel liner paint in a messy and somewhat inaccurate manner. This is actually fine, as these overpaints can contribute to weathering effect later on. Here's the technique. When cleaning the smudges, I pull down the cotton swab downward, simulating dirt streaks. This technique helps create a realistic weathering effect. It's not noticeable on camera, but that's the effect I'm going for. We can always add more dirt streaks later. When the dirt is hard to reach and a cotton swab cannot get it, I use a small flat brush dipped in mineral spirits, then dab off the excess on a paper towel. I blend the stains using a stippling motion, removing any extra paint onto the paper towel. This helps blend the paint smoothly and prevents what we call coffee stains. Here's another demonstration of the technique I mentioned earlier. This time, the streaks are more noticeable, which I later toned down to my taste. Alright, here are all the parts with panel lines and slight weathering. We could stop right here and call it done, but I think you get the idea. That's not how we do things here. And now's the perfect time to add decals and push the weathering further. I'll be using a mix of white, black, and red decals to match the kit's color scheme, along with the EFGF or Earth Federation Ground Force markings, as I imagine this mobile suit in ground operations. And a round gem sticker for the eye lens or the camera lens. I use Mr. Mark's Softer and Mr. Mark's Setter when applying decals. These products help improve adhesion and soften the decal film so it conforms nicely to the surface. These are the main markings. I'll be working on the remaining decals off cam, since it's impossible to film while working on these teeny tiny details. Now we're almost there. Decals are all set, and now it's time to get messy with the weathering. Oh, almost forgot. I sprayed the flat top coat to seal in the decals. Okay, this is the final part of the build, where it all comes together. The first technique I usually do is called chipping. This time, I'm going for a two-tone chipping using two paints. You can pick any light and dark combo, but for this video, I'm using light gray and German gray. And I snag a piece of kitchen sponge. Hopefully my wife didn't notice. Some brushes. This time I'm using a Kolinsky sable brush. These brushes have fine tip and don't fray easily, which makes them perfect for more precise work. Dab the sponge in your paint and blot off the excess until you see just a little on the paper towel. Hold it with tweezers and gently tap along the edges and raised areas. After that, I use the side of the brush to paint the edges. Alright, I'm happy with this, and I don't wanna overdo it. Remember, less is more in weathering. For the blue parts, I'm using the same technique. However, this time, I start with a lighter color, and then add a darker one inside the chips, to give them depth. That's why we need to use a good brush or a Kolinsky sable brush. It allows you to refine tiny details with good control and precision. This may look finished, yeah. We could definitely stop right here. But there's one more step to complete the weathering, adding streaking dirt. Again, we'll need a thinned down enamel paint, like this weathering color. Even the bottle looks weathered itself. This bottle's been with me for years and still only half full. You can also use the same panel lining paints we used earlier. What really matters is choosing the right color and achieving the effect you want to simulate. Just place small dots near details like bolts or edges. Then use the brush to pull the paint downward. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just focus on creating natural streaks. Real dirt isn't uniform, right? So slight imperfections will actually make the effect more realistic. These streaks are a bit too strong for my liking, so I use a flat brush dampened with mineral spirits to tone them down. Oh, and by the way, you can use a pointed brush to refine and kinda sculpt the streaks, just like this one. I find the effect unnatural. So what you just need to do is simply erase or clean up the sides to keep it looking realistic. Alright, now we can finally call this finished. Here's a close-up look at the results. Side note, keeping the weathering subtle is important. Imagine we're working on a giant mobile suit or a giant machine. Dirt and grime wouldn't appear overly harsh at that scale. Even in this scale, 1 is to 144. So softer, more natural streaks help maintain realism. These techniques that I've shown you are just my go-to methods. Feel free to experiment on your own. What works for me might not work for you. You can try different approaches. Read and research references. Study pictures of real-life engines, machines, and structures. Observe how weathering appears in them. And lastly, look into techniques used by other modelers, especially military armor modelers. They are great teachers when it comes to realistic weathering. Alright, I just need to finish a few touch-ups and add the missing details. And then when we're ready for the final reveal. Alright, for my final thought. I think what I've realized while doing this project is it's not that easy to film while working on this skit. But would I do this again? Absolutely. I think I'm really falling in love with sharing what I know along with the stories behind this skit in a video form. Everything I've learned came from people I looked up to. So in my way, this is me giving it back to the community. I'm also really happy I got to revisit this kit and finally doing it justice, I think. This is actually my very first model kit back in high school. So seeing it now, finished the way I imagined, really melts my heart. I'm really proud of how this turned out, and this is definitely something I will forever treasure on my shelf. I hope you guys enjoyed this build log as much as I did making it. Let me know down in the comments if there was a part of this build you learned from or really enjoyed. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you as always for the support. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more future builds and tutorials. That's it for me. See you on the next one. Mission complete.